jump off and jump on.
Yeah. All right.
Off and jump on.
Hop off and come back.
Ugh, I hate everything. Bye.
All right. So Dani is doing her having to jump off and jump back on exercise. That seems to be the way that the YouTube live stream welcomes us every time, but it looks like we've made contact with the chat room. So as soon as Dani is back, and she is, we will get this party started.
Hello?
Hello, hello.
I'm muted.
No echo. It's so weird, isn't it?
I want to sue the fuck out of YouTube. I hate them so much, and I don't even believe in hate. But fuck you, YouTube.
All right, well, welcome back, Dani. You were sorely missed last week, right? I did the solo live stream for the first. I was thinking about this after. I did a solo video one time, like about Novak Djokovic when the whole kerfuffle was going on in Australia. But I pre-recorded it and then set it as a premiere and talked to people in the comment section, right, while it was playing, and then. Back a lot, like I think when I first moved to Austin, I was doing locals live streams on Fridays, but I was doing them like kind of like Laura was like here with me. It was just more like general chatter, right? It wasn't like an attempt to carry on a conversation with myself for an amount of minutes before I insisted on having someone else to talk to. But I did make it through last week, and it went well. But it was like I still feel uncomfortable not having someone that I'm talking to. And B, it's just not as much fun without you. So, so I will continue to do them by myself to get better at it, but I will always be happy when you're here on Wednesdays. So
Thank you. Thank you. I was rocking out to ELO in Denver.
ELO. I remember that's a group from like the 80s or 90s, yes?
Go further back.
70s. Okay.
Did you not see Xanadu?
I've not seen Xanadu, but I'm like
what?
Right. I've not.
Have you caught up on Valley Girl yet?
No, I don't watch movies.
This conversation's over. We're done. I'm out.
Right? Yeah. No, I don't really watch movies.
You don't know ELO?
I mean, I've heard like, tell me a song.
Don't bring me down, 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 down. Yes. Wah, 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 wah. Yes. Or all over the world.
Yes. So I've heard of the group ELO and I've heard all of those songs, but if you had said to me, which song is the ELO song, I wouldn't have been able to sing it. But now that you sing it, I realize that I know that. And yes, so you've just connected 2 and 2, which in today's world, I guess is 5, and we're ready to rock.
And yes, Denise Winterbottom, evil woman. And they tried to take my backpack away at the arena. And I'm like, no, that's not happening. Like we took an Uber here, like that's a hard no. And then finally I'm like, I'm vaccine injured. My dialysis is in here. And they're like, okay, no problem. And I'm like, nothing that I just said makes any sense, but it just shows how stupid the fucking charade is.
Oh my God. Oi. All right. Well, welcome back. You've you have arrived.
Yes. Yes, I have.
You missed having this outlet last week, and there's some pent up stuff, right?
The YouTube thing infuriates me because, just so the audience knows, I got a YouTube strike last week. My video, it was double whistleblower, was taken down for medical misinformation. Emily's version of that video was not struck or taken down for misinformation. I had to go through re-education camp on YouTube, but I've reached out to them many times on Twitter saying, you took my video down, so I can't learn how to be a more obedient content creator if I can't see what you're accusing me of. So I'm going to need you to restore that, or send me a transcript, or send me like, where did I violate the community guidelines? And they're not There's no transparency. I can't get a human. And I also am unwilling to let it go because it's so fucked. Is there any lawyer on our chat who will help me sue the fuck out of these thought police retards?
So we, like, at the time that you did, a few hours later, I went home. I pulled the video because I didn't want us to be able to lose the video, the ability to do the live stream this week. But it is weird that if it was sending algorithms through to catch things that we didn't simultaneously, because that has happened before. There has been times before when something got struck on the words podcast channel that we never use, and my channel and your channel all at the same time, which tells me that this seems like more likely that it was a response to a complaint from an actual human being, which the timing wise was interesting based on some things that were going on with you. Yeah, so but I did take it down. And if people,
oh wait, you mean having my life threatened by the health freedom community? Is that what we're talking about? Being told publicly that to continue to speak about Brett Weinstein publicly is suicide? Is that what we're talking about?
All right, so something sort of like that. Yeah, so I grabbed it, and if you ever get response from them, obviously I'll be happy to put it back up, and the video is still available for free. I mean, I think it's still available on our Word. I have to go back and check. Everything.
It's Word 71, so it's not even new.
Was it 71 or 72?
71. If you give me screen share, I can share my
yeah,
my bad girl screenshot from the YouTube overlords.
So I will go on to Word. There we go. Let's see. Okay, so it's 71. There may be an issue with your content,
but it was removed. So I couldn't see it.
Right.
And then I appealed.
Okay.
So they tell me take a look at my content, but it was taken down. So I couldn't see it to know what the alleged problem was.
Okay.
And then
wait, go back one thing. We listed any problems we found, but make sure your content follows all policies, not just the ones identified. Okay.
But we listed any problems we found. I don't see like there was no, okay, we have a time code.
Right.
Maybe it's worth going back to see what I said at 40, or what was said on my channel at 4356 that was so offensive, but wasn't really that offensive on your channel.
Interesting. Yeah.
Ugh.
So, okay, so go to the next screen.
Okay, so these are screenshots from my re-education camp.
Okay.
This is what I had to go through to not get a real strike.
Oh boy. Well, you and Jordan Peterson are, didn't he go to re-education camp too?
I don't even buy it, given that he's a fucking shill.
Right.
All
Okay.
bets are off. This is what happens when you threaten to have me killed. I just speak louder.
So yeah, the things like all of this, I'd be willing to go, just their algorithm is dumb, except for the timing was very weird, right? And like I experienced a similar type of strange timing of when things that had not been a problem suddenly became a problem in response to speaking about in certain ways about certain people that are not against the rules. It's almost like you say something that's not against the rules, and that triggers something or someone to go combing through your content to look and see if there was ever anything that might have been against the rules that can be plausible deniability punishment for this new thing that's not against the rules but hurts somebody's feelings or something like that. I don't know. It's interesting.
My favorite part about it is that, so Brett Weinstein blocks me on YouTube. 2 weeks later, I'm being harassed by the Plandemic team. Then someone tells me to continue to speak out openly about Brett Weinstein is suicide. And then this video is flagged for medical misinformation. The only person who could have ratted me out is someone on the pandemic team who's going and ratting people for medical misinformation. How does this make any sense unless that whole thing is a smokescreen for bought and paid for shills?
I mean, I think that's been our premise most of the time, right? I think that's been the premise. So it's highly coincidental, or if you play the glass bead game, highly synchronistic.
Yeah.
Right, that those things all happen in that kind of clump, especially considering how Wild West it's been on YouTube for recent months. That like suddenly, like I got something like a few months ago that was like a weird one. It was like, we've removed this video. It was an old video with Sophia Smallstorm. And this videos with Sophia Smallstorm are often the ones that I get removed or struck or something. But it said, we've removed this video. We don't think that you knew it violated our rules, so we're not taking any action or whatever it is. And that was it. It was actually very polite. It was very kind. It was like, it was one of these things, like, right? So that's the only thing I've had like that in a long time. Other than sometimes getting these ones where it's like, we're giving you, you've offended somebody else's copyright. We're allowing you to use our tool to mute the part that offends the copyright. So it's almost like they're helping you to keep your video up by it's really like the music from the Joe Rogan podcast and stuff that has the copyright more than the discussion if you say fair use. So it helped me to mute out the music and keep the video up. So it is weird because YouTube has seemed more helpful than they used to be lately. And then the whole thing is weird. So I don't really know what to make of it, but we always thought that all of this was going to be this weird, like cudgel, like not this lollipop because we're waiting for the better lollipop. And it seems like, there we go. Right. So anywho,
let the record show I'm not suicidal.
Right. And then the same people who were orchestrating the said conversation before show up to support you and you're not, right? Oh boy.
Wow. So much
Right.
wow. So much wow.
Yeah. Oh, that was for Masaki. Masaki loves when people say so much wow or whatever, because that's like Doge speak.
Oh, I had no idea.
Oh yeah, like the people who like Doge have like little sayings like that, and so much wow is one of them. So yeah, maybe you'll get some free doggy coins for saying the magic words, right? Anywho, all right. Well, now that you've released that bit of aggression, where shall we begin?
Do we want to start with Jack Cruz since we both watched it and we both have our own take on it?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's start with Jack Cruz. I've spoken about it a couple of places a little bit. But what we're talking about here is the Dani Jones podcast from a few weeks ago, about 4 hours and 15 minutes long, with Jack Cruz. So
let me ask you something.
Yeah.
I've been doing a little research. How is Dani Jones famous and getting these guests?
So it's interesting. I think I talked about this somewhere last week, but I can't remember if I talked about it on the dump or on the solo live stream I did. So after doing a little further looking into him, either some biography has been rewritten or I had the wrong Dani Jones the first time I dug in, right? Because the first time it seemed like he was some sort of real estate investor before that. Now it's not. Now it's that he was a filmmaker, right? And he's like, one of the films he worked on was oh, don't do that, please don't show me no,
I won't. I looked him up.
One of the films that he had worked on was like some underwater dolphin thing or whatever it is. And so having a background as a filmmaker made more sense to me. Those are skills that, like, let's say they're not making films anymore because there's a lockdown and you're really good at making things look and sound good, and you decide to use that time to do this. That like made more sense to me than how somebody goes from being like a real estate investor into like the conspiracy theorist kind of thing. But I did talk about this a little bit somewhere last week. Yeah.
Okay, it's all bullshit because he apparently started his company in 2007.
Okay, interesting.
But in 2009 to 2011, he was a video media producer at a different company.
Okay.
And then in 2011, he
That's the
decides
dolphin
to
thing.
take
Yeah.
the ladder to the bottom of the basement to become a production assistant, which is pretty much the lowest job you could get. So he goes from being president producer
Interesting.
to now all of a sudden he's the lowest guy on the totem pole. And now all of a sudden he's got millions of followers and views. So he's as fake as the rest of them.
And I didn't go. I don't have, like, I get the version of LinkedIn that doesn't show anything because I don't have a LinkedIn account or page or whatever it is. So I didn't look there. But no, I mean,
he has no bio. There's no bio on him. There's no website. There's no Wikipedia.
Yeah,
but he's,
well,
but
that probably makes him either part of the intellectual dork web or a board member at Lifeboat or SFI, right?
Correct.
Right. So yeah, no, I mean, it does, like, I've been paying attention to that group of people, Julian Dory, Danny Jones, there's another one like named Dalton something or other, and then there's like your Sean Ryan and these people who all seem to have made the move from like either banking, Hollywood, or like intelligence agencies to the podcasting realm during the pandemic. And I don't think that's by accident, right? Yeah, and I think that there's a number of things going on simultaneously, and that some of these things going on doesn't mean the others can't be going on too, right? And like one of the things that I have like gleaned from watching a bunch of this stuff is that they have a level of interest, experience, obsession, or help with things like editing and setting up sound studios and camera and things like that, right? That allowed them to step into the game at a much more polished level than somebody with, say, my background, right? And for a lot of people who are still halfway in the sort of mainstream media type of world, or still recovering from that trauma, like for some reason that presentation is more, it's like the people who want to watch like Young Turks or Breaking Points or whatever it is, because it's still set up in that way that is comfortable if you're coming from highly produced and polished newscasts and whatever it is. You know, and then having it, you know, and then if you have a team somehow, which that's also, I'd like to know the explanation for how you're able to start with a team to really like help you do things that it's hard to do if you're a solo person trying to do this and a full-time job because you don't have any kind of funding or whatever it is, right? So there's a lot of things going on there, but they seem super interested in the production aspect of all of this in a way that lots of people in the earlier iteration of conspiracy media or you know, whatever this is, that, or independent, whatever the fuck it is we do, I don't know, that like that's not a skill set that we have, nor is it one that like we've spent a ton of time trying to attain because we're just mostly interested in the information, right? So, you know, but yeah, it's all backgrounds like that. I think the Julian Dory guy worked for like Merrill Lynch or one of those kinds of investment firms on Wall Street. You know, and, you know, obviously Sean Ryan came from like CIA or Navy SEALs or whatever it was. Bustamante came from CIA. All of their stuff has a similar look and feel to it, almost as if they went to boot camp for something like that. Yeah, it's kind of, you know, we see the same thing when someone goes to like wellness company boot camp or like same, different. It's a different version of that type of thing, right? So anywho, but yes, so that's the backstory, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what you spoke about with Cruz and your intention in talking about it today. What I saw, aside from him taking on Eric Weinstein's personality, Eric Weinstein's role in general, was kind of the same thing that I watched Joe Rogan do around COVID, flip it to this was just around pharmaceutical profit, right? Let's separate it from eugenics and population control, which is really truly the point. And so I watched like the first half was this cruise guy setting up how it was all about Roth IRAs and how the government wasn't going to be able to throw down for those. So they decided, well, let's just kill off the people who were expecting them. And this was like his, because I would say 99% of what he said was actually true. Like he was saying all the quiet parts out loud, but he was putting it in the corner of like, this is just to get out of the Roth IRAs and like just trying to shy away. And then what struck me the most, and I do have a couple clips, but I'm curious to know your take, was the constant dropping of bro, and then telling Danny Jones in the same way that we saw Eric Weinstein speaking to Terrence Williams and a billion other people, you need to do this, you need to be doing this, here's the role that I'm giving you. And then I have a clip that backs this up, but I just kind of wanted to give like high level overview of what caught my attention around it.
Yeah, I mean, my take on the whole thing was just this interesting sort of tying of the whole JFK scenario to the current scenario we find ourselves in this country via the bridge of Nicole Shenanigan, right? And that they should listen to him because he's the only person smart enough to understand like all 8 legs of the octopus.
Correct.
And that now that Danny Jones has prepared himself to encounter the brilliant Dr. Jack Cruz, yes, and has finally made the connection, he doesn't actually need to listen to anybody anymore because now he has been touched by God and he knows the entire truth. And it is now his mission to preach the gospel of Jack Cruz to all of his adoring, whatever it is, right? And the level of just hubris and arrogance, and it's like a major turnoff for me. I mean, it's entertaining. It's kind of entertaining on some level, but like, yes, here's the thing with only a few exceptions, like most of the things he talked about, like I know all about Judith Berry Baker. If you're like 10, 12, 14 years ago, like I remember Popeye from Down the Rabbit Hole or whatever it was, interviewing Judith Berry Baker. Like lots of people used to talk about this in that sort of 2008 to 2011 period of, 2008 to 2011 period of time. So literally the only things that I hadn't heard it strung together in that complete, like the exact sentence he said before, but only some of the very, very technical, like medical terms and the discussion of the Linux machine or whatever he called it, the Liniac or whatever it is, machine, right? Like only a few things had I not heard before. And like on the one hand, imagine the coincidence that he's the one person that could know that part that the other, right? On the one hand, like that sounds far-fetched. On the other hand, you and I have both experienced being in such weird places at such weird times that we actually did get to witness like the, sausage being stuffed into the casing in a way that we wouldn't understand until all this time later. But like what it sounded like to me, everything he said was, I need, people should be listening to me. I need to be in a position of like authority or being held in reverence or whatever it is, because I've been right about this, that, and the other thing. And all of these other people who've been trying to help and whatever and do the right thing and blow the whistle, they've just not been smart enough to piece all the dots together. But thankfully I have arrived. So, right, that's what the whole thing felt like to me.
100%. And I have the clip queued up where he says that, but I also, well, let me play the clip where he says that. And then I also want to touch in on the constant name dropping of Rick Rubin and shenanigans.
Right. I have a
Um,
comment on all that. Yeah.
yeah, okay, but fair use. There are a couple clips that I pulled, but it really feels like whatever program is running Eric Weinstein, he has the exact same version of. And maybe Eric has been too vilified. They're too much. So maybe Jack Cruz is being prepped to take his place as the smartest man in the world who knows everything. But they
Right.
have that same kind of like bullying arrogance.
Right.
All right, fair use.
Do you remember when Eric Weinstein had James O'Keefe on the Portal podcast, and he was trying to get James O'Keefe to do what James O'Keefe does, but the way that Eric wants him to do it instead of the way he does it? It's a similar thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so fair use.
They said it was energy, but it wasn't energy.
No, it's because they
Red
know
light.
it's the blue light. The blue light keeps the system going in perpetuity, and none of you realize it. None of you, because you know what? A, you're not smart enough to know the history. B, you're not a neurosurgeon. You don't know anything about the non-visual photoreceptor system in man.
Pause.
And here's the sad part.
I wonder if he's an evolutionary biologist.
I wonder if maybe we've picked on evolutionary biologists so much that now it's going to be replaced with neurosurgeons.
Neurosurgeon. Okay,
And now
continue.
it's going to be neurosurgeon. That was it. I just wanted us to hear him tell us that we're not smart enough. I know some content creators who do this, and I don't understand the strategy of insulting your audience.
Right.
I don't understand the mindset. And it's like, even if you think you're smarter than everyone, why aren't you smart enough to not say that out loud?
Well,
What is that?
The other thing is like, I don't know. In fact, I was reading, we started reading Stalking the Wild Pendulum by Itzhak Bentov this morning.
Okay.
I've had this book for a while that I've been meaning to read, and right. And he said something in it just in the preface, in the introduction, he's already been touching on like it's the way it's like lining up with sort of some things that I've talked about recently. I'm like, this is the perfect time for me to read this. But he said the thing that I always talk about, like the smarter I get theoretically, right? With smarter meaning the more information, the more things I've learned, the more life lessons I've had, the more data I've picked through and whatever, the more questions I have. So it feels like I know less, right? And so the only thing I can say that I know for sure is that I have no idea what the fuck is going on. And there were times in the past, because my information sample size was much smaller, that I thought I had gotten a grasp on it. And if you had, I would never have said that, like, you know, you're not smart enough to know this, or I'm much smarter than you, or whatever. But like, I probably had a higher opinion of like where I stood in relationship the amount of things you can know about this reality than I do now. So every time someone says a sentence to me that has any meaning, right? Like, so when someone's just telling you about the weather or whatever, no. But when we're talking about stuff that's, you know, fundamental to the nature of our reality and the experience here, or what's going on, it makes me have 10 new questions. It opens up 10 new portals of things that I have to look into in order to reorient myself and whatever. So literally, like, the more things you know, the farther away you are from understanding it all, because now you have more questions. And that does not seem to be reflected. Like, he has no awareness of that concept, right?
Zero. All right, so I just want to continue. We'll come back to Rick Rubin if that's okay, but I want to just the parallels between him and Eric, or the Weinsteins in general. This one's super short. Fair use.
They had different political aims.
Right.
They came together, so why can't we? Like, I've gotten criticism, not that you've leveled it, but people on Twitter have leveled it. It's like, Jack, on your Twitter profile, you say you're, you know, a guy in exile. Yeah, you're right. But
What does it say on Brett's profile?
He's in exile.
Professor in exile.
Yep.
Exact same, like, this is a model in the same way that I have a theory that Chris Williamson is the new David Fuller.
Right.
This is the new, like, Weinsteins combined.
Right.
I think.
I think it's just the same. I mean, there's multiples, right? Like, okay, this worked in one arena, let's move this over to another, let's, get another version for this other group of people who prefer this podcast or that podcast, or who weren't hip to the dark web conversation. So, right, like it's kind of like when we were doing gymnastics, like each gym, they had like a kind of prototype typical gymnast that they produced. And there might be one or two people on their team that were like way, way different. But for the most part, like they were like 80% the same. Like if you had a gym that was really good on bars, almost all of them were really good on bars. If you had a gym where like all the body types were like long and lean and lanky, they were kind of all like that. They might have one, right? It's kind of like that. There's like a factory for producing this kind of thing, right?
100%. 100%. And I don't think it's an accident. I mean, I don't think I'm that important to the op, but like this came out after all this, like, don't talk about Brett bullying thrust my way. I'm not the only one who talks shit about Brett. Everyone, like plenty of people know he's an op.
But what's interesting is most of the other people who have been critical of him on the level that we have been critical completely oppose our viewpoints on the issues.
Correct.
Right? Their critique of their of them as people, the way they present themselves, their loose relationship with the truth is almost word for word what our critique is, but they're on the other side of almost every issue than we are. Yep. Which is kind of unique. Like I actually think that they've had an easier time skirting through with the quote truthers or freedom, whatever version of freedom people think they're fighting for movements, because there's this, the other side has had such a stronghold on like media consensus opinion for such a long time that it's like what we talked about a long time ago, like hearing someone say one thing you agree with, especially someone who had like some notoriety on that bigger scene on some level, becomes like so satisfying that you lose your discernment about like all the other 99 words they're actually saying besides the one that caught your attention.
Totally.
So I think, I think that,
I think Amazing Polly is in agreement with I think I see her as the most.
She's in agreement with us.
Right. She got so much pushback from the wellness company crew. She's pretty much underground. She's not putting anything out. And I also think Adam Curry gets it. Adam and John get it, but we are not in alignment on some things. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, Adam and John are much more like they have a status that they're looking to maintain. And you and I have been renting the basement apartment for a long time. So, right. So, yeah. So, but I think, I mean, whether there's like, whether they all went to the same training thing or whether they all have the same handler or whatever it is, or whether it's just like, I mean, they're all about the same age, right? And whether this is like typical of, like my dad has some of these characteristics, right? Laura's dad has some of these characteristics. Maybe the topics that they think they're right about are different topics than the topics they think they're right about, but the hubris when they think they're right is very similar.
But this feels age inappropriate because your dad and Laura's dad are much older.
Correct.
Brett, Eric, like I don't know anyone in our generalized generation who is this off the rails and lacking of self-awareness in presenting their own authority or intellectual superiority. I do not know any, like, yes, older generations, sure. But I'm not used to this among like Gen X people. This is their own thing.
I mean, I think Cruz probably is on the older end of Gen X.
Yeah, he might be older.
For sure. And probably Eric too. Brett is closer to our age, though I think probably older than both of us.
Yeah.
So, also, they're all men. And I'm never one of these people who's like, it's not fair to me because I'm a girl, and that just never resonates for me, even if it resonates for some people. But I am starting to notice, and I was just talking about this in like a show I had with Nish last week and whatever, that there are certain like personality, like there's certain like behaviors or certain tendencies that I'm starting to notice, oh, like really that only ever happens with men, or that only ever happens with women. And because there are things that happen here in the media space, like it's in that context for me, right?
Yeah.
I've never been the person who felt like I was you know, not allowed to do something because I was a girl, or whatever it is, right? I could always recognize when, like, you know, some stupid guy who wasn't very smart somehow felt threatened by like the tiny little, but like I didn't, I don't care, right?
Yeah.
But certain, like, I don't know if at a certain age with men, like it is very, very important to them that they feel a certain level of authority and that they feel accomplished in a way that they need to announce. I don't know, but like it is like I haven't seen like a woman in the same age range and in the same lines of conversations do that thing. And so I'm not saying, oh, this is like unfair. That's not, I'm just saying it's just something I've noticed. Like it is unusual. This desire for this like status of like authorized to explain things to everyone else kind of thing. It seems to be, I don't know what it is, but
And
yeah.
to authorized to be a dick. Like that's the other thing. It's like, okay, maybe you are smarter than everyone else, but like, have you not learned some sort of diplomacy or social etiquette along the way? Like it's bizarre. Like I always think it about Eric. Like, how have you gotten away with speaking to people like this
Right.
for so long? At some point, you would think someone who cared about him would pull him aside and say, like, this isn't winning you friends. Like, you look like a dick. And to see the exact same thing out of this Cruz guy.
I know this is going to sound
weird.
really weird. I know this is going to sound really weird. It's good. But there are people who like that.
What?
Yeah. There are people who think that's cool or entertaining or fun or whatever it is. Right? In fact, someone announced to me last week that they thought the way he acts is cool. So, right? Okay, right? Like there's other perspectives than mine. Like I'm in a season of like acceptance of everybody having the right to feel how they feel about whatever it is. Right. Sure. So there's other, like we look at some of that and we feel the way we do. And I'm finding out that there's other people who are not only not bothered by that, but enjoy it. So whatever, right?
Totally. Okay,
Yeah.
my last clip, and then I do want to touch in on the Rick Rubin thing, is just it seemed like this was kind of the point, and I was amazed that this happened publicly. Fair use.
You got a year to live. That's kind of the same thing I'm telling you here. The difference is I know you're going to die when you have a GBM, but I know you got a big chance here. You won't die and you won't be an economic slave for the next 7, 8, 9, 10 generations of your family. If you stop being apathetic and nihilistic and get off your ass, turn the fucking Netflix off, stop drinking the coffee, stop buying their products, and go take your country back. That's all you got to do. There's a reason I came here, bro.
How do you know all this shit and still have time to be a brain surgeon?
Okay, I realize it might not have been clear from that. He wasn't talking about his health because he kept saying over and over during that podcast, you need to get off your ass, bro. You need to start speaking the truth. He was like muscling him. And that seemed to be like the offer. Like you and 7 generations of your family will have financial freedom as long as you take the offer that I'm offering, which is the reason why I'm, granting you my majestic excellence today.
So, okay. So, like, obviously Jack Cruz has been around for a bit. We've all, well, not all of us, but many of us have observed him through the years on other podcasts, on and off. It's kind of his message has, like, there's been a through line of the stuff with like the blue lights and the red lights and all that kind of stuff. But the way he the venues that he has presented his information in and the way he presents it have definitely morphed over time. Right. But I know that like Marcy and Jeff have been paying a lot of attention to Jack Cruz for many months, over a year now, or whatever it is. And because they're both in the crypto conversation as well, like I think, and I'm not speaking for them, this is just what I understand from listening to them talk about it a lot, right? He has like a few things that he is really good on, right? But then he mixes it in with like promoting Bitcoin and moving to El Salvador and, you know, getting rewound into the, you know, Jeff calls it the sort of political Deadpool or, you know, whatever it is, right? In a way that like, whether he knows it or not, has him basically like representing multiple ops, right? Like kind of thing. I mean, now he's moved to El Salvador and he's basically claiming to have like written some sort of like amendments to the Constitution or passed some like written something for Bukele in El Salvador that now he's like trying to get Bobby to get to Trump to do here. So
he
now,
says he already did.
So now he's
that
rewriting
has
the
been
Constitution too, or whatever it is, right?
Correct.
But basically, it's the whole, I mean, in El Salvador, like has adopted Bitcoin in a much more major way than a lot of other big countries are. And so like his whole narrative is this weird combination of like get healthy, but by get healthy, I don't really mean that much eating healthy or exercising. I mean like, you know, doing the light stuff and wearing the ugly glasses and you know what, like whatever it is, buy Bitcoin, believe everything I say, right? There you go. At least yours have black rims, but like I just, yeah, I mean the look is not like the look is not gonna do it for me to like be like, oh, that person looks like he's got his shit together. I'm gonna listen to whatever he has to say, right?
Well, also, and just so the audience can see what Emily was laughing at, but like, because I've seen Dave Asprey do it too, and isn't it just for computers? Like, why are you wearing it for a face-to-face interview? Unless I'm missing something about the technology.
No, I know there's lots of people who wear them all the time. Like the different, right? Like I've seen people wearing them out and about, right? Yeah, I don't know.
These are made by Defender Shield, and I had Dan, who created them, on my show, and he said the orange lenses are only for nighttime. They're not to be worn during the
Okay,
day.
I am not an expert on that, so I'm not going to go
I'm not either.
to that pool. But I mean, I don't really know that I'm an expert on anything. But so okay, so but there's this weird sort of, it's this whole like recovering tech bro, wear the glasses, take the methylene blue, do the therapy, buy the Bitcoin, right? Like be like an RFK stan, right? Like it's this whole like combination of things you have to do. It's kind of like when it was like listen to Joe Rogan, take on it, lift kettlebells. It's like another version of that, right?
It's the same, microdose.
Like use the flashlight, like whatever, right?
Yeah, fuck your flashlight. Here's what I don't understand is, when did an endorsement translate to a cabinet position? Why is everyone saying Trump RFK as though they're on the same ticket, that he's part of it? Like, as far as I understand, RFK endorsed Trump, but now all these bro guys are speaking about it as though it is the Trump RFK ticket. Is there something that I missed?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, well, so this kind of leads me into the political part of this conversation.
Yep.
So there's two things that happened that are kind of, I'm trying to sort out how it's the same thing. Like, how does this all work? Okay, he did not like Nicole Shenanigan at first, and he basically made her beg him to get him to help her with her kid. And he was mad at her because she's part of the blue light special that's MK Ultraing an entire generation.
Correct.
However, his two best friends and most important clients are Rick Rubin and Jack Dorsey. Like, why didn't he say, okay, if I'm going to help you, you have to stop doing this to the people? He's right.
Are you saying to Dorsey?
Why didn't he? Because Dorsey went to him for blue light addiction, right? Correct. And like, if he has like this strong ethos about getting off of whatever, like, okay, I'm gonna help you, fucking turn that Twitter off, right? Like when I say turn it off, I don't mean your account. I mean delete fucking Twitter from the internet or whatever it is, right? Like
exactly.
What like Rick Rubin, like, okay, like maybe he's not a Silicon Valley guy, but like he has to know about the frequencies embedded with the mastering of albums and right, all of this other stuff that is doing things. So
not
like,
to mention, like, all the Diddy stuff, there's no way Rick Rubin is not in the know about that. Not to mention his push for AI and machine learning in his On Creativity book. Not
right.
to mention his association with everyone who we pinpoint as part of this.
So let's just pretend for a second that like he's really just like, because he's a health and light and whatever guy who's only worried about the harm that the technology, like not like the propaganda element of it, though he's saying he's an expert on propaganda now basically too, but just the way the computer works in the background, right? And what it does to you. Like, why is it okay to have Jack Dorsey as your best friend, but why is like Nicole Shenanigan the biggest scent, right? Kind of thing.
Right, it was like the hole in his story because he was coming out as like really strong against all the shenanigan issues that we've had, but Dorsey gets a full pass.
Right, Dorsey gets a full pass. And right, and then like, okay, well, like, what is it seemed like the only thing that Shenanigan had to do was like bow to the same lord of Jack Cruz that he's trying to get Danny Jones to do.
Well, and also sell her ex-husband down the river, which to me was like, that just felt so untoward. Like, I personally don't like it when friends break up and they shit talk their ex to their children or publicly. It just, like, that is just bad form. And his whole thing, like, the reason why he gave Nicole a pass was because she hates her ex, the billionaire who she bred with.
Sure, that too, that combination of whatever with the ex, and then also now Jack Cruz is the new messiah and I do whatever he says or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there was that part of the story that didn't make sense, but then at the podcast, during the podcast, he starts shit talking Casey and Callie Means, who are this like weird duo. When I'll be honest, I've only listened to like 50 minutes maybe of them somewhere, and maybe they're wonderful people and saying great things, but like I had never heard of them 5 weeks ago, and now like they have been on literally every single major podcast, including Joe Rogan the other day. They've been on everything. Right?
Who are they? Why are they famous? Why do we know about
I think it's like a brother and sister who, like, the sister used to be like some kind of doctor or medical science person at Stanford, but she abandoned that to come like tell the truth about something. And I think the brother used to be some kind of lobbyist, and I don't know. I don't know enough, but I'm suspicious when I have never heard of someone before, and then they do the complete lap in record time. I don't think I've ever seen somebody hit that many. So it's like, are these two? And I think the first place I heard those names was on the Tucker Carlson podcast.
Yep.
We know that he's in the ear of Trump and whatever it is. So are these two being sort of like social media vetted for a high up position, right? But Jack Cruz was like, you're probably going to be hearing a lot about these people, or maybe you already have, but like they don't know what they're talking about, and I'm suspicious of this one, or blah 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 blah, right? It almost felt like he's trying to, like, there's a competition going on for like the same spot, regarding whatever it is, and he said that in there. So they're going around, they're part of they've been in a lot of the transition team conversations and appearances with Tucker Carlson and on podcasts and whatever it is. And he's in, the ear of Nicole and RFK, but RFK and Nicole have also been doing things with them. So like, I'm not sure I understand. It's more, but we've also seen stuff like this from Eric Weinstein before, where he's poo-pooing somebody else that is part of the same circle, right? And being righter than they are. So I don't really know what the point of all this is. And then also the other part that was weird is that he talks about having had this meeting with RFK and Nicole Shenanigan, but then he's also like, he's subscribed to the, Israel was part of the JFK scenario thing, which would oppose whatever thing RFK is. I don't know, whatever it is. It was this very weird combination of of things like that, both in terms of like, I'm an expert on JFK and also I'm the health guru. And also, like, listen to me, not to these other people, like, or what, you know, it feels like the competition for cabinet positions is happening on conspiracy podcasts. And it's fucking weird.
Okay, first things first, I want to thank Jim Lehner and Matt Moon Crazy for your generous super chats. They mean the world. They keep us going. You guys rock. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, I think he's Eric's replacement because Eric played that same role. I'm so disagreeable. I'm the dissonant. It's like, okay, they're
Right.
poking at one another to make it seem like they're not all involved in the same
Right.
op. That's like nothing about that felt organic. Why would he even get 4 hours? Why would you fly in from El Salvador to talk to this Danny Jones production assistant guy? Like it all just seems so staged. And I think that I do think that Eric and Brett are about to be replaced. Or he's coming in to take some of their roles off of their shoulders.
Or maybe
too similar.
it's just he's going to be the them for his department, and his department is like we have one of these guys in chemistry, one of them in math, one of them in biology, this other one over here in the humanities department. Like, you know, there's a
And broadening the scope of our intellectual superiors to now include neurosurgeons in addition to evolutionary biologists.
right. And mathematician physics people.
Economists.
Yes, yeah, economists, that's right. And
Yeah.
podcasters in exile. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we've exhausted that one. But yeah, that was, and so all those criticisms, and there were some interesting things that are likely true in the podcast.
Totally interesting. And I think, and yes, Lane, are totally SFI tactics. But again, I think like there were lots of points to that. But one thing, and I'm not going to share the Joe Atwell because I don't think we're going to have time today. But like, again, trying to move population control and eugenics out of the conversation,
Right.
and present all these ideas to push it into it's just about greed. It's
Well,
just about
I
economics.
hadn't heard it presented as the Roth IRAs before. Usually it's like we want to get rid of the people who are a drain on Social Security and Medicare and blah, 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 blah.
So that was the part of the Victor Victoria where they made her like a Russian count, right? That's the Roth IRA was the Russian count of this shell game of a podcast.
Yes. Okay. All right. Are we done with Jack Cruz?
Yeah, are you cool if we jump to my dark journalist?
Go to your dark journalist, and then we'll hit mine after that.
Okay, cool. Because this is a whole new realm, and I've mentioned COG before, but I haven't really elaborated on it. And I still think like they have plenty of time to throw one of their major like giant crises at the wall before a new president-elect takes office in January, right? And that is the window for this COG nonsense to really take effect and fuck us over. So I thought this was an interesting perspective on it. Fair use. Here we go.
We have Danny Jones
Deep
and
event.
dark journalist. Why is everyone a DJ these days? Right? We've got house and we've got techno. Let's go.
Okay.
We may be heading into a deep event. So a deep event, again, is something that the deep state operates, and they will want they will step into the public arena for the deep state event and then retreat again, leaving all the debris. But they've caused a policy change. In 9/11, we got the Patriot Act. In the JFK assassination, you got the Vietnam War. And the UFO file, instead of being shared with the Soviet Union and a joint space program and all the things that Kennedy had outlined that we've revealed in our research, and in a very important
Oh
special we're
shoot, I'm sorry. I was at the wrong space.
No worries.
My apologies, guys. Here we go.
and something very unusual happened. Although last year they were blackmailed into it because it held up the funding unless everyone went along with it, this year Rand Paul was able to stop them from adding the UAP amendment in there. I found that very interesting, and now I want to know what Rand Paul knows about the false UFO threat, because this is a guy who doesn't want to see us waste money, in foreign wars or wars with other entities, shall we say. Let's go a little further down that track.
Sorry, this is the real
I
beginning.
want to, as part of the stuff I'm talking about tonight, I want to introduce personnel. Now, I've watched a lot of the activities of the personnel, the continuity of government program. I've also tried to see where they place people. One of the people that I've been keeping an eye on that is related to this, to me, is someone who I think has a very unusual role right now, in that she's the acting labor secretary. She was never confirmed. And so a number of stories have come out about this Julie Su, and her parents were Chinese immigrants, and she, studied here at Harvard, and was a very distinguished woman and all the rest of it. But she became the right-hand woman for Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, who during the COVID crisis wanted to call martial law and said he could. He could. No, governor, you can't. So what happened was she got involved with the disbursement of funds around COVID, acting as the labor secretary for California. And they discovered there were a lot of problems, including the fact that $60 billion had been given out in fraudulent means to individuals under the unemployment program and to businesses under the COVID reimbursement program. 60 billion with a B in a state. This is not on a federal level. She was right at the heart of giving away that money. So what happens? She's in real trouble. Biden grabs her and says, "You're going to be my labor secretary." It's very unusual. Well, let me tell you, even the Democrats, they know when they have problems. They would not go along with it. Joe Manchin said, there's no way I'm going to let this woman in as labor secretary. So they say, it's not going to happen. You're not getting in as labor secretary. So Biden says, I'll just keep renominating her. You guys don't have to confirm her. Eventually, you're going to have to. They say, we're not going to do it. What does he do next? Very strangely, and for the first time in history, Stepford Biden adds this unconfirmed acting secretary of labor to the presidential succession list, which has never been done before in history. Well, Republicans in Congress noticed that pretty quick. Republicans are furious that labor secretary is in line of presidential succession. Here's why. She's not the labor secretary. She's never been confirmed. So here we have somebody grabbed out of a scandalous situation in California, put in the presidential list of succession, but she's not been approved for anything. She's just Stepford Biden's, rescue operation. Now, in the line of succession, she's pretty far down there, but she shouldn't be on it at all. And if you go through that list, of course, you'll get the Secretary of State, you'll get a number of people far before her. But this is how the continuity of government players move their people into position. Now, she might be somebody who is just a low-level labor official that they're using.
There's a piece where he goes into where they try to confirm her, and the senators are asking her questions like, do you think you belong on the presidential succession list? And she keeps dodging the question, saying, it's such an honor. I'm so grateful that President Biden has faith in me, and she won't answer it. But I don't think we need to go into that part. You get the basic gist of how screwy it is.
It's pretty screwy. I didn't know you could just add people to the succession list. I thought it was just like vice president, speaker of the house. I thought that, or whatever it was. I thought that was what it was. I didn't realize that there was like a guest list, like a VIP or like an alternate list, an alternate slate of, I did not know that. So that's interesting and not surprising, right? But it's interesting that it's like nobody picked Kamala Harris. for as the candidate, and she can't answer questions either. So Biden seems to be really fond of these particular types.
Yep.
Very
A
interesting.
daughter of Chinese immigrants, just like one Nicole Shenanigans.
Right.
Interesting how all these people are inching their way closer and closer and closer into the White House.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah. Okay. You ready for my clip?
I'm ready.
Okay. So about an hour and a half before we started here, Rogan posted an interview with Michael Schellenberger, who we've had lots of things to say about over the years. And I haven't had a chance to listen to the whole thing, but there was a segment that I listened to that I'm like, as frustrating as this is, A, we need to listen to this, and B, like, this is like evidence of like, I suppose why we need to keep doing this, because even though it's at like a pace that's like way slower than either you or I are comfortable with, like the arguments that we are making 2, 3, 5, 7 years later are making their way into the larger discourse. And so like, I guess community service we're performing here. I don't know. Okay. So let's do that. And here we go. Fair use. Where did it go? Hold on a second. Okay. No, I have to redo this. Right. Sorry about that, guys. I didn't have my ducks in a row. All right, here we go. Nope, that one too. All right, here we go.
So what is the debate with Bill Nye, the science guy? What was his position?
Well, in that case, it was just more like they were, I mean, it was like kind of a collective gaslighting where everybody has now, I mean, I think it's unconscious, by the way. I don't think they're deliberately doing it. So maybe gaslighting's not fair.
I agree.
They go right from, like, they just have forgotten. It's like retconning, you know, the narrative. So they just kind of go, no, it's about reducing hospitalizations and death. It's like, but that's not the way you sold it to us.
Right.
So can we just take a beat and acknowledge that you've changed your justification for the vaccine, which means that it's motivated cognition. It's not.
Isn't this medical misinformation? Why is YouTube allowing this to be on?
Not like you're like reconsidering vaccines now that they, because what you should do is go, okay, the vaccines didn't do what they said they were going to do. It didn't stop infection or transmission. Now, maybe there's another reason we want them and we should consider it, but you should take a beat and pause before you just sort of rush ahead to justifying vaccines for some other reason.
Right.
Check this out.
Man.
I'm going to show you how.
They always do this to me when we're on the. All right, here we go.
That is
was
not a
his
nail
position?
that I want to see on the screen.
Just, I mean, it's the most, you know, Peter, it's just the same as Peter Hotez and all of these guys. It's very authoritarian. I mean, it's very like, I mean, what he calls science is not actually, what Fauci and Hotez and Bill Nye call science is not actually science, because science is a process. The way they talk about it is more like
A doctrine.
yeah, exactly. Or a dictatorship where it's like science is done by scientists. Well, actually, science can be done by anybody. It's like journalism. Like
Right.
you don't need a PhD to do science. Like science is something that you do. It's also not the same. I mean, you do sometimes you have experiments in labs, but science in the world of ecological biology is just going out there and counting the number of gorillas or whales. So this, you know, so when they say science, they really mean like obey me. That's
right.
what they mean.
And it's people that are
Pause.
connected to institutions.
Why are they letting him say this? Why are they letting him off leash to this extent? I don't get it.
Because like this is what they do. This is the synthesis, right? Like we've gone as far as we can with that set of permissions. The people are complaining about this, that, and the other thing. So if we're going to continue the op any longer, we have to acknowledge the complaints that have been registered. When you hear what the totality of this line of the conversation is, they're getting to some place that, right? Like I said, 4 or 5 years down the road, it's like, okay, like time to roll out this, right? Like, you know, like we can't do it without making this concession anymore. So let's make this concession so that we can continue to use these people as the thought leader, you know, whatever it is, right?
Yes.
Okay, so here we go. There it is.
All of them.
Very powerful
Wait,
ones.
Right. Those
So
wearing
you're
a NASA
connected
shirt, right?
to educational institutions. You're connected to these pharmaceutical industries, these various institutions that are funding media, so they have enormous influence and power over narratives.
Yep.
And then you have people like Bill Nye, who's not even a scientist.
No, I know he's an engineer.
which is really wild, right? Like
Right.
a guy who's not a scientist is the science guy. And this is the guy that is a spokesperson. I find spokespeople for science that are arrogant very strange. It's a very strange thing because science is there's a scientific method, and that's what science is. Science is applying
That's
the
right.
scientific method to and data and trying to find out the truth based on what we know.
That's
It's
right.
not trust the experts,
No.
especially when the experts are severely compromised.
Oh, right. So a little late to the party, but thank goodness you finally arrived. Like this has been the whole. So this was one of the people who was the trust the expert people was like Brett Weinstein on his show all
Correct.
those years ago, and it was okay, right? So now it's like at the pace that he can realize it and Michael can agree with him, then oh, maybe we do have an expert problem, right? So let's continue for a minute.
It's the opposite of that because remember,
Yeah.
it comes out. Science comes out of Christianity. It comes out of this desire to understand God's creation, and then over time, the church gives more and more freedom to these scientists to study things that end up being quite inconvenient, like the Earth revolves around the sun, or there's this, there's evolution, or all these different things that scientists discover. It's the opposite of doctrine. They're discovering things that are counter-doctrinaire.
Right.
So it's becoming. This is where. You get to this. Science is basically, people are trying to make it take the place of a religion. They're trying to turn it into an authority. And of course, it can't do that because science is just supposed to tell you how things are. It's not supposed to tell you what you should do. That's the realm of ethics and politics.
Didn't the concept of it come to Descartes in a dream?
Of science.
What? Politics is telling us what to do?
So I think the point he's trying to make is that scientists are supposed to go figure things out. And then if there's going to be anything done about it, the scientists are not supposed to tell you that. That's supposed to be argued about in a court of ethics or politics, or I'm not saying I agree with it, right? But it's satisfying, and we're not going to swallow all the other things they're saying along with it, that now we have people who before were like, we just need better experts. And now it's like, well, maybe experts are the problem. Continuing.
Okay.
Science.
Yeah, I believe so.
Definitely the idea.
See if you can find how he figured out where he initially came up with the concept of science, but it was understanding nature through measurement. I forget exactly how he came up with it, but I'm 99% sure.
Talking about Descartes here, because I think we interrupted at a part where he started talking about Descartes.
Where it came to
Okay.
him in a dream. That I believe it was like an angel that brought him this information in a dream.
all these early scientists, including Newton.
Here it is. The French philosopher and mathematician believed that he had 3 dreams in November 10th, 1619 that revealed the basis for the scientific method and his philosophical methods. He was possessed by a genius who revealed answers in a dazzling light. He went to bed exhausted and dreamed 3 dreams. He envisioned reforming all knowledge, understanding the nature of existence, and how to be certain of that knowledge. Descartes' dreams are considered a philosopher's dream and are considered to be authentic. His interpretations of the dreams are supported by biographical material, neuroscientific theory, and psychoanalytic
There's neuroscience, right? There's the neuroscience again.
theory. Descartes' dream is also the subject of The World According to Mathematics, a series of essays that examines the influence of mathematics on society. The essays consider how mathematics can be applied to civilization and how these applications can be beneficial, dangerous, or irrelevant.
So what is ClickUp? ClickUp is an
Okay.
Yeah,
there's
I
a-
just saw that as legitimizing Aubrey Marcus's prophetic ayahuasca visions about RFK.
Well, what I take it from is like, okay, so not only is science being misapplied, right? But science comes from this nebulous dream realm, right? So there's like a secondary question, right? Like maybe it really is sort of religious in nature, right? Like if the idea of science came from the same place that all of these other sort of religious ideas, i.e. visions, dreams, whatever it is, right? So there was a little bit more there, but we can stop. We don't have to to listen to the rest of it, we can move on and
So
go to
does he ever at any point differentiate between science and scientism, which was brought to us by the Gnostics, Rosicrucians, Shakespeare, Francis Bacon? Like, this has been established and codified. Like, why is Michael Schellenberger pulling these ideas out of his tight ass and telling us things that aren't even true? Science and scientism are different. Scientism is the cult of rational materialism.
But I think that that's what he's saying, is that these people, well, let's finish there. Let's finish, because I think there's going to be a resolution to what you're asking here. But I think Joe Rogan does a little bit better of a little bit better of a job getting to the point. Oh shit. What is happening here?
It came to him in a dream. The idea of initially, it's very interesting, right? That human beings lived for so long before the scientific method came along, and now it has become this weird thing that's been captured by people who are so-called experts, the spokespeople for the science, which is always dangerous when you have an enormous group of
the
intelligent.
Guy who had Eric Weinstein on to shut Terrence Williams up because he wasn't an expert. Like, Joe was part of that bullying. Joe was one of the ones who was saying, Terrence, do you understand what Eric the expert is telling you? You're pissing off the physicists, the real scientists. Like, that happened, Joe. Did you think we all got mind wiped?
Right, but however, right, what he is now saying has been our point for quite a bit of time. And
Correct.
so, right, like, and this is like, as much as we might like change to happen much, much faster, right, when they kind of run out of runway, you know, with whatever op they're performing, and then they have to go, okay, like, why aren't people buying this? All right, let's introduce this little part that's slightly more, right, that's what it is here.
Right.
People, which the United States is. The United States is 330 million people. Some of them have degrees. Some of them are just brilliant people that have spent a lot of time studying things. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of people. So when you have all these people debating things and you want to maintain control and push a narrative, that shit gets very messy. And the best way to handle that is to have certain people be the stern purveyors of the science. That's it. When you criticize Anthony Fauci, you're criticizing science.
That's
Remember
right.
when he said that?
It's incredible.
That was a wild thing to say, but it's so transparent because it shows how they really think.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, I don't know how this wasn't obvious to them at least 2 years ago, but 4 years ago or whatever. But the slow roll of reality finally got to that statement.
Which is why they're the mouthpieces hogging up all the air, because they figured it out years after we've been talking about it. In other news, I'd like to thank Marty and Cheyenne for their generous super chats.
Right. So, I mean, it's fascinating to me, but here's the part that's the scariest part about all of that is, I haven't had a chance to examine the comment section, but there's people in the audience who are like, oh my God, what a profound thought, right? What a profound thought that, like, right. So finally, it's now permitted to question the experts. So everybody have at it. Go for it. Right? Because Joe and Michael Schellenberger say so.
Right.
All right, let's move over to the chat room and see what's going on. Now is the time, if you have questions, comments, any of that stuff.
Did you hear that I said we got more super chats from both Cheyenne and Marty?
Let's see. I heard you say, yay, Cheyenne. Thank you. Marty McGowan Chitwood. Thank you. I think that's 5 for the show. That's amazing. Thanks, everybody.
That's a good show.
Questions, comments. Let's do it, guys. All right. I'm going to roll through and see. I worked on my reading through it while talking last week. All right.
How did that go?
Well, I had to do it in chunks. Like, I would talk about whatever I was talking about for a little bit, or answer a question, and then go back and read like 10 or 12 more or whatever. So pace myself that way when we do like a whole show, and then I try to go back and look. It's like, oh, there's a lot there. I don't think I can do it. Right. So
That's a lot.
Yeah. All right, I'm just rolling through to see. Yes, Bill Nye is also an actor. In addition to not being a scientist, he's also an actor for sure.
Was Gavin married to someone who's now with Donald Trump Jr.? Gavin Newsom?
No, Gavin Newsom's ex-wife is Kimberly Guilfoyle, and now she's married to Donald Trump Jr. or Eric. She's married to one of the Trump boys.
So the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gavin Newsom's ex-wife is now married to a Trump, right? Yeah. She used to be like on one of the news programs Kimberly Guilfoyle did. Like she was like on Court TV or one of those things, like back when I used to watch all the made up trials and shit. Okay, let's see.
Marty says, thank you for bringing up Jack Cruz. I followed him many years ago because I was interested in heliotherapy. He literally disappeared for a long while. Is he part of the plan to push RFK? Feels pretty obvious.
Like it. Here I am says he just reinforced that science is correct when it comes to things like the Earth rotating around the sun. Yes, that exactly right. And so I'm wondering, it'll be hilarious when Michael Schellenberger is like 72 or something. He'll be on the Joe Rogan podcast being like, I'm starting to question the shape of the Earth.
Right?
Right. Totally. All right, let's see.
Ms. Matrix Metaphor gave us a super chat. Thank you, Ms. Matrix. We love
Thank you, Kathy. That's Kathy. Thank you, Kathy. All right, let's see. I think therefore I am Descartes. Yes, I think that's the one. Let's see. He does the same act every time. No one is as smart as him. Right? Yeah, like he has a few things that like are really unique information to him. And that are really good, but like, yeah, the just, I'm so smart that takes a neurosurgeon to know political history. Yeah, it's, I'm very put off by it. And maybe that says more about me than it does about him, but that's where I'm at with it. But what I remember, like when I first heard of Jack Cruz was when he was being interviewed by people with quote, like targeted individual channels, right? And like that was the first place I ever heard of him. And it was probably like back 2017, 2018. I remember it was like kind of around the same time I was doing a lot of sugar is programmable matter stuff. And I was sort of talking about some of the experiences that I've had with blue lights, but the blue lights I'm talking about are a little bit different, but people recommended Cruz to me. And I went and listened to some of the things, but like I have a lot of a hard time with like the targeted individual channels, like just the way that, yeah. So I like that was the first time he was ever brought into my awareness though. And that was sort of the playground he was, you know, dominating, bullying or whatever then. So yeah. Okay, let's see. These dudes are low-level gatekeepers. Absolutely. Like, yes, do not inflate their egos by calling them high-level gatekeepers because they certainly are not. All right, let's see. Mind wiped on a daily basis.
You remember the like kind of old jokes about Ringo being the Beatle that's like, I'm just happy to be here. I mean, I don't actually agree with that, but that's how I feel about Schellenberger.
Totally.
Yeah,
He's like the dangling member of the Twitter files and the dark web. It's like, I came in at the last minute, guys. I'm here. Right? Yeah. Okay, here I am also said they do count on the audience having a short memory and being not about connecting the dots. Correct, right? And that is like, you and I do not have short memory. But that's how they're able to pull this off.
Yeah.
And then at the time that you point out that you've been saying this forever, some retard will come along and say, well, can you show me all the evidence of what you said 5 or 10 years ago and do like a special performance for me where you lay out your entire theory and you sum up 10 years of work in one sentence?
Right. And if you don't do that, then you're a low integrity person who will be suicided.
Right. All right. 2CB, LSD, meth, nice background noise. Okay.
Oh, I would like to promote my interview with Robert Forte. Came out today where he finally spills the beans about Rick Doblin, MDMA, Israel, Mossad, FDA. Like he finally lays it all out. Which I've been waiting for him to do for years. So you guys can find that on my Word Up podcast.
Yay! All right. There has been no, yes, he's a hanging Chad. Totally. He's like a dingleberry. You know what I mean?
It's like a dingleberry.
All right. There's no questions or comments in all capital letters. So
we're done. Thanks,
I
guys.
guess we're done. Guys, Dani, it was a pleasure to have you back. I guess we can call it a pleasure.
Don't feel any pressure to call it a pleasure.
Well, it certainly wasn't boring. Let's put it that way. And we will be back next week, same time, same place. And we will see you all then. Thank you so much. Well, what are we calling the show? What's the title here?
Oh, what is the title? Oh, what about something in exile? We should do the
Neurosurgeon in Exile.
Let's end the
We'll
live.
talk about it later. Okay.
Bye, guys.
I like to do the embarrassing part